What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, which is being brought to you by BetUS, as you can see at the top of the screenshot, the BetUS, man, make sure you use that top link in the description or the pinned link in the comment section. It is NFL week. It is officially NFL week. We kick off on Thursday. Ravens, Chiefs, let me know down below who you got in that game. Right now, I like the Ravens early. And this was something I wasn't sure how I wanted to do this, but I definitely wanted to do this. I don't feel like we did this last year, and that's just simply a season prediction video. So what we're going to do today is we are going to go through, predict where each team finishes within their division standings. We kind of started doing this throughout the offseason. I was doing, one division each kind of like Dodcast episode. But this, there's some tweaks to it, is all put into one. I'm also going to predict some of the awards that are given out at the end of the season. And then finally, who's playing in the Super Bowl. And I did a full Lions prediction over on Bleacher Report today at 1 p.m. Eastern time. That link is in the community tab right now. You can go back over there and check it out. I had 10 predictions for the Lions and their game-by-game predictions on the season. So definitely go check that out if you want just straight up Lions predictions. But we'll touch on a few of those here, but the whole thing is going to be over there. Before we get into today's video, again, I want to give a shout out to BetUS, man. Make sure you use that top link because you can get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. And if you go over there to BetUS, as you can see, with NFL season right around the corner, college football has already kicked off as well. They have those betting odds as well. But for the NFL, today I wanted to scroll down. Of course, we have our odds for week 1, so if you want to bet on the week 1 games, there is the place to do it. But they also have some futures. They have NFL props, which we'll do throughout the season, of the season awards that we're going to go through. Now, I don't want to spoil all of these. However, one that really intrigues me is Defensive Rookie of the Year, especially in this year's draft. Liatu Latu was the first defensive player. It took a while for one to go off the board, which I think opens the door for a lot of possibility who to actually win this award. Now, of course, on here we have our guy Terrion Arnold, which could be a very interesting bet if you want to go that route at plus 1,200. I think you get really nice odds on a lot of these players just because it feels like it's very up in the air. It can be a little bit more difficult, as we know, for a cornerback to win this award, but we have seen it happen before. And the two that stand out to me, first off, a non-Lion, Nate Wiggins at plus 2,500. I love the supporting cast that the Baltimore Ravens have. Love the way that they play defensively, and I think Nate Wiggins is an NFL-ready type of cornerback. And of course, in coverage, where I think he specializes, he's going to bring an immediate impact. They lost some of their veterans this offseason. I think he has an excellent opportunity to step into a big role, really be productive for that team, and be part of one of the best defenses in the NFL. And if that's the case, I think it puts him in a really good position to potentially win an award like this. The other one is our guy, Enos Rakestraw Jr. at plus 5,000. Plus 5,000. That one is just super intriguing. Number one, because even if he doesn't start to begin the season, there's a real chance that at times people get banged up. We've already seen it with Mosley. We know that the flexibility is there, so Rakestraw can kind of just find himself onto the field, whether that's slot or outside. Carlton Davis, we know, has been banged up in the past, so you can expect that there's probably going to be a few games that he misses at least. I just feel it's going to be difficult to keep Rakestraw Jr. off the field, especially with how much now teams come out in 11 personnel. You'll be in nickel package so often. You may be in dime package a lot, that he's going to find himself some snaps. And all we've seen through training camp is that he could take the ball away. And that's not even what he was known for coming out of Missouri. It was everything else. He'll make plays against the run. He'll be impactful. He'll flash a lot. He'll be a guy that stands out to the viewer constantly. And I think plus 5,000 is just so intriguing. So if you were to bet $20 on Nate Wiggins, your potential payout could be $500. If you were to bet $20 on Rakestraw Jr. winning this award, your potential payout could be $1,000. So I might as well just place both of those bets over here on a BetUS. Make sure you check out BetUS. Use that top link if you want to get in on the action. Now let's get to the video. So now we're going to walk through the full NFL season prediction standings. Now, I don't have a record prediction for each team, but rather where they finished within their division and also whether or not they're making the playoffs and what seed I have them earning in the playoffs. We'll start with that first, and we'll talk about some of these award winner projections as well. First off, AFC East, this one has remained consistent for me here. The most difficult one for me is between 2 and 3. I think the Miami Dolphins have a real chance to be number 2. I don't love the Miami Dolphins when it comes to, say, getting to the Super Bowl or getting onto that level, but I do really like what the Miami Dolphins have, and they give so many teams so many problems, just simply the speed that they have offensively, that they're just very difficult to match up with, and they can put up a ton of points. We know we have concerns later in the season, but in terms of just finding a way to win games during the regular season, I think that they are tough. But the Buffalo Bills, I think, have a real identity. Yes, they lost some real talent this offseason, but I think they have an identity. I think they know who they want to be. It may not be the prettiest, but I think it can get them around 9, potentially 10 wins on the season. Will that be enough to get them into playoffs? According to this, no. However, I think they'll be right on the outside looking in. Josh Allen, who's one of the best in football, they'll be a difficult it out for anybody. And I always like the defense that they put out there. It's a very consistent, productive defense. Always have a nice defensive front. Yes, they lost their top linebacker, which is difficult, but they're always good on that side of the football. I really like what they have put together on the defensive side of things, specifically on the front line. However, I have the New York Jets winning this division and earning the number 3 seed in the AFC. I know, right? The question is about Aaron Rodgers. This question about his health. There's just a lot of headlines that come from the Jets. But all of that aside, I really like what the Jets are as a team. I love them defensively. I love the personnel they have. The linebacker room has taken off over there for the Jets. Their secondary is one of the strongest in football, which kind of separates themselves versus a lot of teams. They drafted really well. And then offensively, the concerns are injury. But they gave themselves a safety blanket by going first-round offensive tackle. Probably will be in there at some point, but it gives them some reliable depth. At the receiver position, it's going to be a lot on Garrett Wilson, and then you have a lot of veteran receivers as well. While you are relying on some youth for depth here, Malachi Corley, I love the draft pick. Still Max Mitchell at backup tackle is nice. And then Braylon Allen and Izzy at running back. And then defensively, this is just a really nice unit. McGregor made the team as a UDFA this season. I love the defensive line. Leonard Taylor, another UDFA for depth there. I really like Will McDonald. I loved him coming out of the draft. I just like the way that they draft, and the back end is tough. Breece Hall could be in for a massive season as long as he's healthy. The real question is just simply injuries there. Does Aaron Rodgers hold up? There's just questions about injuries. It's a massive question. But in terms of just the personnel that they have, I just like the roster they put on the field, and I think they're going to be a very difficult team. Number one, if you have to play at Jets, it's going to be tough to put up points in this team. How many teams are going to put up 20 plus? I don't think very many. And then the flip side is offensively, while I don't think they'll be incredible, they could be much better than what they were, and their offensive line is solid on paper. So to me, I'm taking the Jets to win that division. Over to the AFC West, I have my first shock. I'm going to take the LA Chargers to win the AFC West. I know this sounds crazy, and it feels crazy actually looking at this. Now, I do have the Chiefs still in the playoffs as the top wild card, but I'm going to take the Chargers to get the number 2 seed and win this division. That's a lot to ask. It's definitely not my favorite team on paper. Obviously, a lot of this is simply the Jim Harbaugh effect. I expect him to come in and be a good team. He has a great quarterback, and he have a great coach with him now. I expect that to just be productive immediately. Their offensive line needs to take major strides. I know they had a Joe Alt, but they still need to take major strides. But on paper, they should have 2 good offensive tackles. Lad McConkey could be asked to do a lot. It's going to be important that he's healthy this season for this team. And then defensively, a guy like Tuli Pelotu is going to have to be in for, I think, a big season for them to rack up a ton of pressures. They have some big names, but he might be their best player on the defensive side of the ball. As much as the Jets and injuries are a discussion, I think the LA Chargers are really the team that should be looked at here. When you talk about the receiver room, DJ Chark, Lad McConkey, Josh Palmer, a lot of injury concerns there. And then defensively, I think because of the questions in the back end and asking Derwin James to take a big step forward, I think the linebacker position is going to be massive. But I think Junior Colson is a play now type of player. And where does Henley go? So they're going to be asking of a lot from young guys, maybe some improving pieces as well. But I just think the impact of the coaches is going to be enough there to help turn that thing around for the Chargers. I think they still have enough talent to make that thing happen. And then for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they take a step back on offense. They weren't that great last season. People remember them as the top offense. They weren't a top offense, but they have a very good defense. Now, they lost to Jarius Sneed this offseason, yet they still find a way to draft well. They're asking some younger corners to step in this season for them. I still really like what they have first, second, and third level. Lots on Chris Jones in there in the interior, but when he's out there, it makes their interior really darn strong. A lot of it's about the defense for them, and they have a nice special teams unit as well. So that will make them consistent. And Patrick Mahomes, once he gets into playoffs, not someone that you usually want to face. Raiders, who got one last year, could get one again. I don't think last year was a fluke. I'm not the biggest Xavier Worthy guy. I could be completely wrong on this, but as of now, I'm going to say top wild card because the Chargers take the division. AFC North, I had to flip this. Initially, I had the Cleveland Browns winning this division, but I flipped that because in the AFC, I think the Ravens have a very good shot of being the number 1 seed, getting a bye week. You can make a really strong case that this is the best team in terms of well-rounded. Now, they lost some key contributors, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, but I really like what they are offensively. Derrick Henry is going to be so interesting to watch within that offense. And I feel like I know exactly what that team is going to be. Yes, they lost some key pieces. They're going to ask younger guys to step in, like Trenton Simpson, young guys at cornerback, but I trust those guys. I think those are good players, and I think at this defense, they're going to fly around and make plays. I really like what this team is on paper, offensively and defensively, and again, they have a great special teams unit, so I think it's very possible they end up as the number 1 seed again. When it comes to the Cleveland Browns, though, I think the Browns can get in the playoffs. It's just a question at quarterback. It's a very legitimate question. He has not looked good as a Cleveland Brown. Deshaun Watson has not looked good. But I still really like their defense. I'm a little bit concerned about the run game. That's the biggest concern, because if that's not the same and as dominant as usual, they love to pull offensive linemen, get behind those guys. They have some injuries there, not having Nick Chubb to begin the season. They usually find a way to make it work. I think they have one of the best coaches in football in Kevin Stefanski, so I think they'll find a way to be competitive. They need a step out of Deshaun Watson, no question. I think this year, especially early, they need it to look better, and I think that it can. I don't expect it to be great, but I'm relying on everything else they have going around with this team. So I'm going to put the Cleveland Browns sneaking into the playoffs as the number 7 seed. AFC South, again, maybe a shocker here. I'm taking the Indianapolis Colts to win this division. Now, I have real questions about Anthony Richardson. I loved him coming out of the draft, but I have real questions about him right now and how that's looked. However, again, love the head coach, love the offensive line and defensive line. I think they have really strong stability there on both sides to be consistently competitive. That is a weird team that makes games competitive, and again, I feel like their head coach has a lot to do with that. I like their home field advantage a lot as well, having been there in person. I probably have some bias being there so much last season at pretty much every single home game, but I like the home field advantage that they carry. I think their back end is young, and that's the spot where you're like, ooh, I don't know if that got much better. It's going to be about just development and growth there, and that could be a real problem against the Texans, but that thing came down to the wire last year. It came down to the wire. I understand the Texans added Stephon Diggs, and I still have them making the playoffs, and I still think CJ Stroud should have won the MVP last season, but all of that being said, I really like the Indianapolis Colts and that head coach, and I think that they have so much stability that I can buy into them being a surprise team to win this division. I think it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be tight, and that's why the Colts come in as the lowest division winner seed, and why the Texans still get in the playoffs not far behind. This could come down to a head-to-head type of tiebreaker, which is going to make those games incredibly important, but I'm going to take the Colts to win that division. The other thing here would be the Tennessee Titans being third over the Jaguars. I like what the Titans have in a lot of spots, not every spot. Of course, the receiver room is better as long as it's healthy. I do like what they have with Will Levis. I think that's going to be fun to watch. I think they have a nice identity. I just don't think they're great on the trenches on both sides. I mean, their offense line is coming together, but I don't think it's great on either side there. And then the back end, they have some veteran play.
I don't think I'd be shocked if any of these 4 teams won the division, and I think this is a swing team in the NFL that could surprise a lot of people. They got my guy Jarvis Brownlee to go along with a cornerback room that's reliable with the veterans and Awuzie, and a guy like Snead that can play in a lot of different coverage types, can be very physical, can really thrive in a cover 2 look, and then on the defensive line, they're pretty strong depending on what happens with Sweat. Offensive tackle, they tried to invest in a play-now guy in J.C. Latham. He fits the scheme perfectly. I just don't know that I love those two together. Interior offensive line, a little bit questionable. Cushenberry was solid, and then weapons-wise, they have the weapons on paper. They'll be fun to watch. I just don't trust them to be first.
I think it can be better than the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think could have a really rough season this year and kind of surprise everybody as that team that just falls flat this year. They came out 8-3 last season. I could see it falling flat this year on the AFC side. So I'm going to take the Titans to finish above them. And that's how I have the AFC shaping out. So the Ravens, the 1 seed, the Colts, Chargers, Jets, all with home playoff games. And then we have the Chiefs, Browns, and Texans as the wild cards. That is a disgusting wild card lineup. And this is set up to be a lot of upsets once we get into the playoffs. And we're going to talk about that. But next, let's go to the NFC side of things. Go through it. First off, NFC East, I got one team representing here. I think the Cowboys will still finish second. I think they just have too much. I know they didn't do anything during the offseason, really, but I think they have too much not to make the playoffs versus that division. Maybe the Commanders shot can get in. I want to root for the Giants. I just don't trust them at all. I want to root for them. I want to believe that, hey, they made the right decision. They vested in their O-line. I just don't think it's taken the strides. I understand the thinking behind it. I just don't think it's taken the strides necessary to get where they want to be. I think Malik Neighbors could easily win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I just don't trust really anything about that team right now. I like Brian Daboll a ton. So I really wanted to believe in the Giants. I just couldn't get there. And I don't overly trust the Commanders to surprise everybody this year. Jay Daniels look nice. I don't overly trust them. So I'm going to go kind of chalk here, but I'm going to put the Eagles as the 3 seed. I think that's a really good team. And I think Kellen Moore actually makes that offense better because I don't think it could get much worse. That was a disaster. Looked like a high school team playing offense. Okay, I understand Jalen Hurts has something to prove. They need a better offensive mind in there, though, as well. And Kellen Moore, I think, helps them. He's not the best, but I think he helps them in the passing game. Over to the NFC West, I'm going to take the Rams to shock and win this division. As you can see, 4 and 5 here because I think these teams are going to beat each other up. Yes, I have 3 teams out of the division, and my surprise of the NFL next season is going to be the Arizona Cardinals making the playoffs as the final wild card team, which means that there's going to be a crazy battle. Seattle is a very tough out as well. I just don't like their offensive line, but I'm going to put 3 teams out of this division. I'm going to have the Rams representing that division. I think that team is just loaded with weapons, better offensive line O-line on paper. Not the best in football, but better on paper. It should be. We'll see about the tackle position with Noteboom kind of stepping in, and then hopefully Jackson gets back and he helps them out a little bit. On the defensive side, losing Aaron Donald was tough, but they've really invested there, right? When you go out and you add Jared Verse and you have Braden Fisk in the mix as well, who fits that personnel really well. They already have a good nose tackle in play. Veterans back in the secondary. I think they've just improved in a lot of ways. This is a team that's trying to win right now. Throw Kobe Turner into the mix as well. Let me not forget. I think the LA Rams can definitely overtake the San Francisco 49ers in a tight divisional race this season. I think they take a slight step back, but they're still going to make the playoffs. On to the NFC North, of course, I got the Lions, and I have them as the 1 seed. That's probably the standout here over the Chicago Bears, who I also have making the playoffs this season. I think we'll probably split with Chicago. I think they're the best team in the division outside of the Lions, especially in terms of just how we match up. I think they're the toughest out for us in the division by far. I think the Packers take a real step back this season, not to the point where they fall off, because I think for a lot of teams be a pain, especially offensively, because Matt LaFleur is just going to put up points. That being said, though, against a team like us, I think we sweep them. I think we match up incredibly well. I think they have weaknesses against straight man coverage, and I think some of that's going to be shown this year, depending on who they play. But I think it'll be enough in a tough NFC for the Green Bay Packers to miss the playoffs. I have them at 8 and 9, but somewhere around that range, just on the outside looking in. If you want to flip them into Cardinals, that's fine, but I'm going to put the Cardinals in. Then finally, onto the NFC South, we got the Falcons because of their easy schedule, easier division. We'll see how they do against the Bucs, because I don't want to overlook them completely, but there's a scenario where they sweep this division. I don't trust the Saints or the Panthers, so I'm going to put them as the 2 seed because of the division they play in. I don't love them in the playoffs, but I think they can go win a playoff game as the 2 seed would face the Arizona Cardinals, and I think they can win that. That's, easy either. Like, Arizona Cardinals have a lot of areas where they need work. I think Marvin Harrison will be ready to help give them media impact. Michael Wilson was big time last year. Trey McBride has been awesome. I don't love the offense fine, but at least they've invested there. Maybe they're trying to hope for a big jump for Paris Johnson. They just need guys to take steps forward. And then defensively, they have a lot of work to do, but they've just found a way to be competitive and feisty. They found a run game. I think Arizona Cardinals are well-rounded enough. They're not special enough to go to the Super Bowl or make a deep run in the playoffs for me, but I think they're well-rounded enough against some bad teams to go find a ways to get wins. The issue is the division they play in. They'll have to sneak a couple out against some really good football teams there in terms of the Rams and the Niners. Moves to still playoffs. I think the Falcons are in a position to potentially win a playoff game against the Cardinals, so I think that'll be a lot of fun. For the Eagles and Bears, I think that is an awesome matchup for the playoffs. I have the Eagles winning that football game, and then of course we have the Rams and the Niners, which I'm actually going to take the Rams in that one, but that'll be the 3rd time they would have played on the season, so who knows. That moves us on to the divisional round, where in the divisional round I have the Philadelphia Eagles moving on, and of course our Lions moving on. It would be the Lions against the Rams, another rematch of that matchup. I'll take us in that one, or the Niners, but I'll take us in that one. Philadelphia Eagles seeing the Atlanta Falcons, and I think the Eagles are a better team, so I'll take the Eagles on that side. On the AFC side of things, this is where the upsets just kind of fall into place here. Kansas City Chiefs and the Indianapolis Colts. I would have the Kansas City Chiefs winning that game, though I don't know. I think that'd be interesting, but I'll take Kansas City because of the struggling, I think, back end. I like the weapons the Colts have to put up some points, but I don't think they have enough maybe in this game against a strong Chiefs defense, so I take the Chiefs with the upset there. I take the Browns to beat the LA Chargers in the playoffs, so I think that one's kind of a toss-up. I have the Chargers winning the division, but I'll take the Browns with an upset on the road against LA. I think they could travel well for that, and then I would take the Houston Texans to upset the Jets. So upsets across the board on the AFC side. On the NFC side, though, I'm going to go chalk, basically, and have the higher seeds winning outside of the Atlanta Falcons once we get into the divisional round, where I would have them losing to the Philadelphia Eagles 2-3. So that leads us to this AFC and NFC championship games. Lions, Eagles, Ravens, Texans. For the Lions' sake, I think they would way rather match up with the Texans. It is a matchup league. I think that helps them a lot to get that matchup because of where the Texans could be weak this year. Could play into the Lions' strengths versus seeing a team like the Ravens. And on the flip side, Lions, Eagles, this is a heck of a battle, I think, for both sides. O-line, D-line, that's what they're built through. I love that matchup on paper. I think there is a lot of similarities about these two sides. A young back end that has been invested through the draft. There's so many similarities. This would be such a fun matchup to see where these two teams are at by the end of the season. But of course, got the Lions beating the Philadelphia Eagles, and I have the Texans beating the Baltimore Ravens to set up a Lions-Texans Super Bowl, and I love the way the Lions would match up in that. And the Lions, for the first time in the Super Bowl era, are Super Bowl champions. First appearance and Super Bowl win for the Detroit Lions in 2024. I'll be honest, I wanted to get kind of creative with this one. I could have went super chalk with these predictions, but I wanted to get creative, so that's what we did here. First off, MVP, because they're a playoff team and they win their division over the Chiefs, Herbert's going to be set up to do that. Now, I worry a little bit about the receiving core for him to have enough production to make this happen, but I just think Herbert's incredibly talented, and I think with a really good offensive mind that takes a lot of pressure off him, that leans on the run game, allows him to be more efficient, I think Justin Justin Herbert could be in for a monster season. And if they have the wins and the division title to go along with that, I think that could be enough to give him the MVP. So I'm going to go a little surprise there, throw a shot at Justin Herbert. I think that's an interesting potential betting one. Offensive Player of the Year, Puka Nacua. He was amazing last season, and even with Cooper Kupp, you could see that it was like, hey, let's set up ways to get Nacua one-on-one. Don't think there's enough good secondaries in the NFL to slow that guy down. Puka Nacua could be in for another monster season. I have him winning Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player, though, it's about darn time Lions get an award. Aiden Hutchinson is going to win this. The other guy that I liked here is Max Crosby, but I think Aiden Hutchinson, when you talk about the improved back end, DJ Reader in the mix, I think he's in a spot for a guy that had over 100 pressures last season to get more sacks. He's always kind of just due for a couple of interceptions, and the Lions being the number 1 seed, the winning will be there as well. Aiden Hutchinson set to have a breakout season this year in terms of sacks. In terms of those, Lions only had 41 sacks last season. They're set to break out with a guy like Davenport across from him. He's going to work a lot of pressure right to Aiden Hutchinson's lap, and Hutchinson is set to go win his Defensive Player of the Year award. Offensive Rookie of the Year, again, I'm going kind of bold here, and I'm going to go Brian Thomas. I think where he sets in with that offense, don't love the Jaguars this year, don't love Gabe Davis, but I do love the fact that I think Brian can step in, even though I think there's some areas where he needs a lot of polish and his route tree is not the deepest. What I do think is he knows how to win on the routes that he runs. He's going to be a very legitimate vertical threat, and Trevor Lawrence is going to give him a lot of opportunities. And because of that, I think he's going to take advantage, put up really good production year one. I know you should probably go like Marvin Harrison because I put the Cardinals in the playoffs, but I'm going to go with surprise here and put Brian Thomas as my Offensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go Nate Wiggins. I love the fit in his defense. I love the fact that he's going to play in and immediately impact this team, and I think that he's going to be really ready to play. Run defense, yeah, that doesn't matter when it comes to these awards. What are you doing in coverage? He could take the football away. He could be very difficult in coverage. He's a freaky athlete. I'm going to take Nate Wiggins to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, as we placed a bet on earlier. And finally, Coach of the Year, we're going to go Jim Harbaugh because, again, you won your division. I didn't know what else to do with this. He's also the favorite to win this award. I wasn't trying to go this direction, but because I have them winning the division, I was like, okay, they'll probably go with Harbaugh. Coach of the Year is always kind of just like, whatever. I mean, the guys that win this, you can kind of go wherever you want. It's usually the team that's like, oh, we didn't expect anything, and then they do it, like Stefanski. You could argue that it definitely should be Dan Campbell gets the 1 seed in my prediction, but that's fine. Coach of the Year, we'll go Jim Harbaugh, tying along with Justin Herbert. So those are my season predictions for the 2024 season. Before we get out of here, I want to give you a quick glance at the Lions game-by-game predictions. Again, this will probably change. I've tweaked this a few times, but as of now, I have the Lions at 14-3, starting the season 6-0 before the first loss at Tennessee. Again, it's a matchups league. I have them losing to Tennessee, losing to the Indianapolis Colts, and losing to the Bears one of their 2 times, but going 14-3, potentially the last team that's undefeated on the season. I saw that bet. I think that's super interesting. I got the Lions 14-3, locking up the 1 seed on the season. If you want to see my 10 predictions for the Lions this season in terms of what player stands out, what will improve, why will it improve, it's all over there on Bleacher Report. We may revisit that, but for now I'm going to leave it there. Then we'll start to get prepared for this LA Rams game. So if you want double content, go check that out. I'm going to leave that for that video. However, I'm going to leave it here. Those are my season predictions. Try to kind of fly through that, keep this thing short and sweet, but have some fun with it. All right, I know other teams will be like, what? That's not fair. Our team's going to be better than that. It probably will. It also might be worse than what I said. I don't know. I'm usually not that great at these, but I like having fun with it, so I'm going to leave it there. Those are my predictions. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you check out that top link in the description or that pinned comment for BetUS, man. If you want to place some bets season, that's the place to do it. Shout out to BetUS. Thank you, Pride, for watching, and I'm out.